right. I think we are live. Hello, everyone. Hello. Welcome to the Office 365 or Microsoft 365 Pulse recording. We're here today to give you guys 37 updates from the Microsoft roadmap. So we'll kick off and start with the in development category. So Tamara, why don't you kick us off? What is in development that excites you or that you're happy about or excited about or want to tell us about?
There are so many choices. Office apps and OneNote dictation in the Department of Defense. So Microsoft is bringing the capabilities of dictation to the Department of Defense. So Department of Defense users will be able to use speech-to-text technology in Office apps to draft documents, emails, and notes. This is going to be great for anybody who has accessibility issues. It's also going to be great for those people who like to do out loud brainstorming when they're putting together a large document. It's going to allow them to get everything on the page first and then go through and edit, because that blank page can be so intimidating. So I'm really excited about this. It's coming out for Outlook, Word, OneNote, and PowerPoint. And that's coming out in August of this year.
That'll be awesome, because I've had so many instances where my coworker will say, I need help with words. And that's like, so what? Blah, blah, blah. Da, 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 da. Oh, that was awesome. Can you repeat that? It's like, nope, don't have a clue as to what just came out of my mouth, other than the fact it sounded really good as it was coming out.
And then the other thing that I wanted to point out is PowerPoint is getting some love. So Microsoft is integrating a camera feed in your slides. So integrate a live camera feed into your presentation with Cameo in PowerPoint. And this is due out in July. So it's due out in the next 5 days. So I would expect to see that pushed back because it's in development.
What's exciting about this one, though, is I can't tell you how many people end up having to buy a Camtasia license for this simple feature. They want to be able to show video screen and show camera and put them together with people who really don't need video editing software, because we don't really do anything with video editing software. We want to present from our screens in a PowerPoint. And so at $500 to $700 a bundle license, it's going to be very nice if this is included in PowerPoint. This will be a very cost-efficient tool depending on how it's done. Now, again, don't know how many features it's going to have, but for those that are on the fence of, do I really need this feature? It could be a cost saver in a great way. So I'm very excited. As someone who owns an enterprise license for multiple people using Camtasia, I'm very excited about this one. Very excited to see where it's going. So there's also one with Microsoft Teams, collaborate Teams with Excel Live. So this is where you can use everyone collaborating on an Excel worksheet live in a meeting window. So, I mean, woohoo, that could be fun. I guess if you guys had a need to all be in an Excel file. I guess if you were in sales, I guess we have had sales meetings where we've all had a tab and we've been in doing something, or if there was a large file or something like that. So if you were at a meeting using that, it was so exciting it made me yawn. Just kidding there. But Excel Live, working in Teams, that could be, I think, one of those features that if you're going to use, you're probably going to use all the time. And if you're not using it as a team, you're probably going to be like, why would you ever need that feature? But that is coming. I'm kind of excited about some of the things they're doing with Live and with PowerPoint, not with Live, but with Excel Live, and then PowerPoint Live with the Power BI and stuff like that, integrating the live features of other applications. So exciting to see that coming. How about you, Tom? Although we might have stole all your good ones.
I was going to say, apparently Tamara and I have been married too long, because she took like 3 of the 4 that I had highlighted there. And you took the other one. So there is one, though, that I do have highlighted. Microsoft Viva Meeting Category Insights coming to the Viva Insights app in Teams. So Viva Insights can give you insight into, how you're spending your time, when you're reading your emails, do you have free time that you are stomping on the top of with other work outside of hours, things like that. They're doing one now with meeting category insights, helps you align time spent in meetings with your goal of giving you visibility into the categories of meetings where you spend your time. So I'm assuming that it's going to take, if you're using categorization in your calendars, it may use that to say, hey, 35% of your meetings are for customers, 25% are team meetings, other ones are whatever. So I'm looking forward to seeing how that looks and what kind of insights it gives you. I don't know that it will change anything on how I do meetings because I have to go to the meetings that I'm assigned to, but app might be a really good way to see exactly where you're spending your time in meetings rather than just going from meeting to meeting unhindered by plan, as Tamara would put it. So, and with that, Adam, you want to hit the geeky stuff because that's about what's left now.
Yeah, sure. I won't even do all of them, but there's a couple of them I wanted to call out that I thought were kind of interesting. One of them that I like to see is a new update for Microsoft Information Protection. It basically adds downgrade justification dialog that warns the user to avoid adding sensitive information to the plain text justification. What this basically is when you go to remove an MIP label, it basically asks you why you're removing the label. And I'm sure there were times where users had problems and they'd be like, oh, because blah, blah, blah is classified or something like that, which they would then be putting classified information in plain text. So just a nice thing to go through and add, hey, you probably don't want to put in sensitive information in your justification for why you're removing the label. They also had a couple other cool ones as well. One in particular that I thought was cool was Microsoft Defender for Office 365, redirecting users to the Microsoft 365 Defender. This is basically spec'd at all the government clouds. And the idea is that they will begin automatically redirecting users in the government cloud environments that are accessing the security related capabilities in the Office 365 Security and Compliance Center to the Microsoft 365 Defender. This is just rebranding on Microsoft's part. If you are in commercial and you go through and you look at what you want to do as far as security features, that is all under the giant label of Microsoft 365 Defender now, and you are in the Defender control panel, basically. If you're in the government suite, that's still up until now been in the Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. This gets confusing because there's an Office 365 Security and Compliance Center. There was an Office 365 Security Center, which has now been renamed the Defender. And there was also a Compliance Center. And so all three of those existed at some point inside of the government suite. So it was really hard to figure out where you needed to go. This is just bringing it in line with the other stuff that's happening inside of the Microsoft 365 sphere, and will also make it easier for documentation and stuff to line up. If you've never worked out of government clouds, the fact that stuff is delayed there, you'll find documentation that talks about stuff that is just not relevant to you, and it gets super annoying and super confusing sometimes. So really, this is just bringing it in line with other sections. There's a couple other things in here too, but largely it's stuff that's just kind of interesting. For instance, they have data lifecycle management, which is optimized behavior of deleted files with multiple versions, again, spec to the government cloud. This is the idea that if you have SharePoint Online files uploaded, well, if there's a retention label or there's a legal hold that's sitting on that, it saves all of the versions of that file, because obviously if you're saying, I need to, retain this information, it's going through and doing that. Well, previously, when you then deleted that file, it would put every single version of the file as a file in the preservation hold library. So if you then went through and did like an e-content search, you'd find, hey, there's 30 versions of this one file. They're just modernizing that a little bit, where it's all going to be contained as one file that just shows you multiple different versions, make it a little bit easier for you going through and actually looking at information after the fact when you're doing e-discovery and stuff like that. That's
Very
it for me.
cool. Cool. All right. Well, Tom, do you want to take us to rolling out then? You can start us.
I can talk about some stuff this time. I'm going to skip a little further down on the list for rolling out and talk about 3 of the items they have coming or that are
there's
in
only
rolling out.
there's only like 6 items, and you're going to talk about 3 of them.
They're all stream related. Yes, I am. You
Okay.
all took mine. I'm taking yours. So Microsoft Stream, first one, timeline markers in team meeting recordings for when you left or joined meetings. So they're adding markers, which appears icon above the video timeline In team meeting recording timelines, 2 indicate when you joined or left a meeting. The markers are personalized, so you will only see your join and leave marker. The markers help you jump right back to part of the meeting where you may have missed. Markers will only show up in recordings of team meetings that you were invited to and that you joined. I think that's awesome. If you know you had to leave and then you're trying to, fast forward to, I remember this, I remember, don't remember that, go back, yeah, I remember that, and narrowing it down. Now you can just say, hey, here's where I left, skip right to it. So I think that's a good one. Microsoft Stream and SharePoint inline playback of videos in the Hero web part. So when users click to play a video in the Hero web part section of a SharePoint site, the video will play inline. This feature allows users to watch a video without being taken off the SharePoint page and allows users to browse or scroll through the other contents of the page while the video plays. I know that when this first came out in development, Jennifer was like, hate it. But I think the fact that you have to click to play it and it stays in line rather than you load the page and it takes off kind of mitigates some of that. So I'm thinking this is kind of a cool thing that I'm going to like. And the fact it doesn't take you to a whole new page or something. And then the final one is Microsoft Stream and SharePoint video collection pages. So SharePoint video collection pages make it easy to gather and display all the videos from a SharePoint site collection in one place. The feature is particularly helpful in schools, universities, and other organizations that tend to share videos in Teams channels. With this feature, you will be able to create a tab in your Teams channel that links directly to a specific collection in videos. I think this is really cool because it kind of gives you the I would think it's going to give you the feel of the channels that you would have in Stream Classic. And as we're now getting closer and closer to them rolling out the migration tool to get you off of Stream Classic and into the new Stream in SharePoint and OneDrive, that's going to be important that you can go through and point somebody to a page and say, okay, here's all the videos that relate to this particular channel, quote unquote. And then you can just find them all there instead of having to go to the Stream application, the classic Stream application to find them. So looks good to me.
Very cool. All right, Tamara, why don't you cover any other end user ones we want, and then we'll pass it to Adam.
Oh, I was just going to cover one and leave one for you. So Outlook bookings with me. So eliminate the back and forth scheduling with your personal bookings page. Bookings with Me in Outlook is a web-based personal scheduling page that integrates with free busy information on your Outlook calendar. And Bookings with Me lets people schedule a meeting or appointment with you. And you can create custom meeting types to share with others so they can easily schedule time with you based on your availability or preferences. And you can get an email confirmation, and attendees can update or cancel scheduled meetings with you from your Bookings with Me page. So I find that really interesting, especially because I do some coaching with my clients. And it would be nice if they were able to schedule the coaching. And I was able to show them what times I had available for the coaching. So that would be neat. So that excites me.
Cool. We've got 2 for Teams. So deleting your call history so you can hide your call history records from your history view. And then you can also have your Teams Q&A, so question and answer for webinars and meetings. So the organizer can enable a Q&A to a Teams webinar or meeting in the meeting options. And then you're either able to create a moderated or unmoderated Q&A experience for meetings or webinars. So your meeting organizers can turn that on or off in the meetings settings. So that is rolling out now.
Go ahead, Tom.
Go ahead. I was going to say there's also Outlook mail tips. We'll recommend users to address accessibility issues before sending emails. So this will avoid you doing things like, it says users will see an email tip in Outlook recommend you fix accessibility issues before sending email messages to large DLs, external users. Yeah,
so
or for
I
any
actually
messages.
looked this one up because I was curious about it. It will do stuff like make sure you're using friendly fonts that are easily readable, that don't go in together. Make sure you have proper spacing between your different paragraphs and different messages. Make sure if you're going through and doing stuff with pictures, there's content that explains what's in the picture. You can even go through and do the text-to-speech feature that exists inside of the Office suite to make sure it reads correctly, stuff like that. So it's got that's the type of accessibility tips that it's got to be mentioning, which is kind of cool. There's several nerdy ones outside of that one. I was interested in that one, but there's a couple other admin-y things that I think are kind of cool too. So this is something that actually I've done like 5 times in the last 2 months. So it's cool to see this coming out. Basically, they're adding in new options. So retention policies are becoming a more and more popular thing that companies are leveraging. But as it's become more popular and more accepted, some people want pretty complicated retention rules around what they do. I've worked with clients that say, okay, well, we first want to save the file for this amount of time, and then we want to save it for this amount of time, and then if it's this type of file, we want to save it. Like, they literally have like different tiers that they want to do and stuff right now. And if you look at how the features work in retention label, it's not complicated enough or robust enough to handle that. Well, Microsoft has clearly been hearing the feedback. You're now going to be given the new option in data lifecycle management that will basically say, apply a retention label action at the end of a retention period. So the idea would be, I go through and I say, okay, I want to save all this stuff for a certain period of time. Well, you could then go through and actually apply a label to it that goes through and says, okay, I now want to handle this differently. This is actually kind of interesting too. What you're really looking at here too is the combination of 2 different versions of retention in the world of Microsoft. You can go through and set a blanket retention on what you're doing on your tenant. And then retention labels are something that originally existed as an E5 feature that they kind of started slowly going and rolling out, where this isn't just a blanket retention policy. This is something that you do targeted at individual items. So what this is basically saying is you can go through and say, hold this data for a certain amount of time, and then at the end of that period, I want to then go in and apply a file specific or an item specific label to continue or to extend that even further. So kind of cool seeing those 2 technologies come together. It's just kind of a neat thing to see. The other admin things that I thought was kind of cool, there's 2 more. One, if you're doing advanced message encryption, you're now going to have the ability to actually go through and retrieve encrypted mail when end users do it. So say I'm going through and I'm sending an encrypted email to Tom, and I send it to him through Office 365 message encryption. Well, it has this really cool system. You can look at the graph of how it works, but it basically leaves that inside of the own environment of Office 365, has Tom load in a web browser to view that content, and then he can go on about his merry way. Well, they're basically adding logging, so you can clearly see that the action was taken, that the information was accessed, and things like that. For any customer that has compliance needs, this is going to be a huge win for them and something they weren't being exposed to previously. So again, just nice to see that. And the final one I'll bring up that I thought was kind of cool, Microsoft Defender for 365 password protected download of quarantine messages. And I don't know how much this one was really needed. I guess this is just like a confidence thing for people. But if you get messages that are quarantined, a lot of consumers go through and set the settings where if you think there's a malicious message, quarantine it. If you think it's just spam or bulk mail, go ahead and deliver it to the junk items. But for a good IT staff, you still want to go in and review the content that's being sent to your users. So you still want to go in oftentimes and pull content out of the quarantine to see what's coming out, to see what's happening. Well, the worry was before, if I say go ahead and quarantine malicious messages and I go through and download it, what if I mess up, or what if an end user is doing it and they actually run an executable on the email or something like that? So by password protecting the messages, all this does is assure that you're not going to run it accidentally, because then you go through and download it, and before you try to run the file, it's going to pull up a prompt asking you for a password. So just make sure that you don't accidentally run a virus on your computer or something like that. Again, not sure how much this was necessarily needed, but it's a nice little safety thing to make sure that you don't accidentally nuke your whole system.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, Tamara, do you want to start us off with the launched?
Sure. SharePoint, update a site logo management. So with this update, Microsoft is simplifying where you go to manage the site logo by centralizing it in the change the look header experience. So that's going to be found under site information, under site settings. So to get to the change the look header experience. And that's going to be available, or that is available worldwide, GCC, GCC High, and DoD.
Very cool. I know we've been talking about that one for a few weeks, so exciting stuff there. Whiteboard is going to have Bing image search. So that's another one we've been talking about for a while. So that just means when you're searching for images, you can search on Bing. Just remember that does not control the copyright to it. You're still only supposed to be pulling images that you own the rights to, but you can go out to Bing and get the images there. Tom, do you have anything in the section?
Just so I say something, I'm going to pull one that I normally would not have done. Microsoft Teams, admins can pin message extensions for GCC. So admins can now pin or manage the pin order of messaging extensions in the Compose experience. So this is something that you can do in regular, but was not available starting in some of the government clients or some of the more higher security clients. So GCC now has it.
Cool. How about you, Adam? Anything in here of interest?
Yeah, I'll do just briefly 2 really quick ones. When we started this the session in development, I talked about the lifecycle management of files when you're going through and doing retention holds and stuff like that. That was for the government space. It's actually going live now for commercial. So if you're in commercial, you'll be able to see that and mess with it, which is kind of cool. And then they actually are finally releasing the Graph API for what you're going through and can doing inside of the what they're calling premium e-discovery, which used to be advanced e-discovery, which is nice. For most people, this won't matter. But if you're an organization that does a lot of custom dev work, I could see larger organizations out there having their own tools and applications that they've written to manage their e-discovery cases. So all the features that were different from advanced e-discovery from regular e-discovery. So think of code custodians, think of the messaging you can do around communication to your end users, think of the ability to go in and redact, the ability to pull in additional files from external sources. All that stuff was features of advanced e-discovery, which again is now premium e-discovery, but none of that could be done through the graph before because they haven't developed it. So with this finally coming out, if you're a developer and your organization heavily relies on that, I think in particular, this is going to be interesting when it comes out to the government space. A lot of the larger federal organizations get tons of Freedom of Information Act requests, and I could 100% see them having developers that have put together applications and systems to make that easier for their end users. So I imagine once this hits the government space, they'll be very, very happy about that as well.
Cool. Well, in canceled, we just have one, and it's irrelevant because it's a roadmap canceled item because it's in a different item. So it's the paging video gallery for the web for Teams, and it is canceled because there's another roadmap item that is doing the same thing for web and desktop together. So it's nothing to see here because it's in a different roadmap item under a different wording. So that's all, folks. So pretty simple this week. It's pretty easy. Nothing really getting canceled. Cool things rolling out. Some cool things in the development phase that should be hitting the rolling out phase very quickly, especially in the PowerPoint and Excel area. So that will hit your end users, but they're kind of obscure. So I don't think they're going to hit your everyday end users. They're going to hit your power users that are going to go, hey, cool. Those are the ones they're going to hit, or someone's going to do something in a meeting and you're going to go, I didn't know you could do that. Those are the types of features. I don't think you're going to get, hey, somebody moved my cheese. You're not going to get any of that coming up soon with any of these rollouts, which is good. So cool. Well, we'll be back next week with another set of updates. So bye, everybody.
Bye now.